As coaching legend Andy Reid is always quick to point out, it's never as good as it looks or as bad as it seems. So far through exhibition play, that sentiment certainly rings true for the Villanova basketball programs. Kevin Willard's team looked sensational in their debut against VCU, but much less so on Friday at Virginia. As always, the truth, of course, lies somewhere in between, but we'll pick through both results and tell you what has cause for legitimate concern and guarded optimism less than a week from opening day. Also, Denise Dillon's team appeared almost flawless at times in their exhibition against Towson. Just how high is the ceiling for the women's basketball team this year? We break it all down, plus a visit with DMV basketball expert Marcus Washington, all next on this edition of Holy Nova. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Holy Nova. We are part of the Big East Energy Network. I'm Matt Janus alongside David White. David, we have a packed show coming up. We're less than a week until opening day. Very exciting times.
Finally got to watch a basketball game. I'm excited. I just have a question for you. As in the Philly area, are you allowed to mention Andy Reid's name without getting pushback?
Well, they did win the Super Bowl last year, the Eagles, so I think it's okay to bring back the respect for Big Red. But he had a lot of good ideas. We just were too busy criticizing what he said at press conferences, and I was at the top of that list. Hey, we have so much to discuss. Can't wait to hear your thoughts on the exhibitions from Friday. But before we get to our reactions, we want to ask you to please subscribe to the Big East Energy Network if you haven't already. We've got 9 schools covered with weekly shows, 2 Big East debate programs, plus T. Baker serving as our women's basketball aficionado. There's no better place to turn for your Big East coverage. In fact, if you're already subscribed, help us out. Tell a friend to do the same. Also, please, as my kids love to say, smash that like button. It takes no time. It's critically important getting us in front of more Villanova fans. Also, leave a comment telling us what you're worried about and please buy so far with the Cats. Okay, David, you got to digest this game. You were unable to be there for the first exhibition against VCU. It was not televised, so you had to go off of quotes, word of mouth, and scarily enough, take my word for it. You watched every single play of this game against Virginia. Some good, some bad. What are your first impressions of this year's Wildcat team?
I'll first echo your sentiments that Caden Lewis is good, very good. Um, I think there's a lot to work on. I think defensively, Kevin Willard can't be happy with the open threes that they're giving up. I'm sure he'd love offensively to cut down on some of those turnovers. So I think good is in spurts. That last 6 minutes of the first half looked really good. Uh, we need to expand that last 6 minutes to 40 minutes of basketball. I almost said 20, 40. We want 40 minutes of basketball playing like that.
What did you think in terms of the physicality early? It looked like Virginia kind of took it to Villanova a little bit. Maybe the Wildcats weren't quite ready for it. A little bit bigger home atmosphere than maybe the Nova team was expecting as well. Got to give credit to the UVA fans. They really bought it. Nova seemed rattled early. There were a lot of
Mhm.
turnovers, and they weren't really great turnovers. And
Yeah.
yet you didn't see that a ton against VCU. You didn't really see a ton of it in the second half against Virginia either. But early on Friday, it was ugly at times, I thought. What did you think?
I agree. And I think the majority of the first half turnovers were turnovers where I think it wasn't necessarily Virginia's defense. It was like they were kind of getting ahead of themselves, a little too amped up, maybe passes off. Um, so I think those are the things that you can fix. The turnovers where it's just you making a mistake. You can fix that in practice. You can talk about it. You can watch film, see what happened. And to their credit, like you said, the second half, we didn't see as many of those turnovers where it was just like, honestly, Virginia's defense isn't doing anything to you to make you turn the ball over here.
What was weird was Virginia's offense making threes at the clip they did in the first half. First of all, let's state the obvious. It was weird watching Virginia get up and down the floor. That's not anything we've ever been used to seeing.
Pressing 90 feet.
It was it was certainly a kind of an out there experience. We talked about Villanova playing slow and the fans looking forward to picking up the tempo a little bit this year. Virginia is that times 1,000, and you could just hear the John Paul Jones Arena brimming with anticipation at the start of that game and the way Virginia was playing. They made 8 of 16 threes in the first half. Let's be honest, Villanova's perimeter defense wasn't very good. But you
Mhm.
wonder how much of the scouting report today kind of see what they can do from 3-point range and feel them out that way. And they played very similar, I thought, defense in the second half, maybe a little bit closer to your shooting guys and maybe not quite as much cheating away and help, but it wasn't as though they were playing denial defense on the perimeter and yet it was 2 for 10. 3 halves of good perimeter defense, 1 half of dreadful perimeter defense. What do you think in the reality is there? Is that a cause for concern, or was that just one blip on the radar in that first half?
I think it's probably more likely a blip. I think you don't know what these teams are really capable of from three starting out. So what are you going to try and take away? The middle. Um, I think beginning of the game, they were allowing a lot of straight line drives to the basket, which also forces help to come and then leaves 3-point shooters open on the perimeter. So I think shoring up the on ball defense, shoring up some of the pick and roll defense. I thought that they weren't particularly great in the pick and roll at times. That helps because it allows the helper to not come over, leaving the kick out. But Virginia certainly knocked them down.
They did, and at times you're just kinda watching saying, "What in the world is going on here?" Because they did VCU missed some open shots. Again, goes back to that thing that we said at the front. It's never as good as it looks. It's never as bad as it seems. Well, VCU really kinda helped Villanova's perimeter defense out in that first exhibition game, but Phil Martelli also acknowledged Wildcats did some things on exchanges that confused them a little bit, maybe rushed their shots. There was nothing rushed in that first half from Virginia. There was a little rush in the second half, I think that is a good sign. On the other side, I think now it is time to state definitively there is some reason for concern. That three-point shooting number,
It's
it's not been
atrocious.
good now in back-to-back exhibitions, and quite frankly, a lot of these shots, it's not like they're in and out. They don't look great coming out of the hands.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of force ups, a lot of threes where it's just kind of like we're going to dribble around the perimeter and just shoot it because it's open for half a second. It's not necessarily a good shot, but yet 6 for 26 from three is just it's not going to get it done this year. I mean, Malachi Palmer for everything he did against Virginia, and I think he played a great game. 2 for 7. A lot of them were not particularly good shots. We got to cut down on some of those and get the shots coming through the flow of the offense, not just forcing up a three because why not shoot it?
Yeah, it is, the good news is I don't think Malachi Palmer is gonna shoot 7 threes most games. Remember, no Bryce Lindsey, scratched
Mhm.
because of the illness, and that's you'd have to imagine a relatively late scratch, so you didn't exactly have a game plan around it. You were already missing so many bodies, and let's be real here. Tafara Gapparo makes his Villanova debut, but did not play in the second half. He was not 100%. They were being very cautious with him. So essentially played a lot of the game with 8 guys. This is a team you talked about playing 10, 11 deep coming into the year. They are besieged right now by injuries. That is going to have some long-term ramifications. In the short term, it kind of altered some roles and what you were leaning on offensively. And as you build that deficit, I do think guys press just a little bit. And to a
Mhm.
degree, that's to be expected with a young team. And that's why it's so good to have these exhibitions. Let's be honest, David. Normally, you had been going through this the first time you had closed door scrimmages, which are not the same. There's no atmosphere. You're doing situational stuff. You're putting guys in situations. You don't care about the results because they're going to get leaked. You can either deny them or downplay them or make up your own reality based off of
Yeah.
what happened to to worry, not have to worry about people overreacting. Here, they're going to see the results, they're going to see the scores. You don't necessarily care about winning and losing, but you don't want to look bad doing so because you don't need unnecessary panic surrounding your program. So you play it a little bit more game like. And for Villanova, yes, there is big concern with the 3-point shot coming in to the season. We talked about that magic number for Caden Lewis. We didn't make up the magic number. You remember what Kevin Willard said
Yeah.
during the offseason? He said 35% is what you're looking for. If Caden Lewis is knocking down 35% of his 3-point shots, we're going to be in really good shape. And he's a pro sooner rather than later. Unfortunately, he has not gotten anywhere near that number. Now, it's a small sample size and it's only 2 games, but he's 2 for 11 so far in exhibition play. Malachi Palmer, 2 of 7, a lot of forces, a lot of settles, a lot of much more stagnant possessions, I thought. I mean, there was ball movement, but as you said, it was dribble around the perimeter, look for an opening, and then a couple passes, throw one up. Eerily reminiscent a little bit at times to last year's offense, whereas we saw none of that against VCU. And that might be getting rattled a bit by a pretty physical Virginia team road atmosphere for the first time, but it's something. Look, you're not going to play every game at the Finn. You're going to have to deal with that over the course of the season.
Well, the other thing is you don't have the offensive rebounding to be able to get away with throwing one up every once in a while because your guys are probably going to come down with it. I mean, Kevin Willard has said that he doesn't think this is the most athletic team, so you're probably going to get out jumped. So you can't afford that. And this is where fans have to not overreact because I think it's fixable. I think if you, like I said, you watch that last 6 minutes of the first half, you see threes made in the flow of the offense. You see them getting after it defensively, which leads to easy baskets in transition. You see them run the offense, run that pick and roll to perfection. I think there's plenty there where Kevin Willard can pick that tape out and say, this is where we play well. We need to do more of this. How do we do that?
And I kind of lost my train of thought on that last point, but this would have been the performance that you saw, maybe that rattled Nova team in the opener against BYU. But now you're getting it out of the way in these exhibition games. That's why they are so valuable. Yeah, you want to be competitive out there, and you don't want to lay an egg because people are going to care about the results. But it also allows you to. It's a dress rehearsal. Dress rehearsals aren't opening night on Broadway. There are mistakes. You move past it, but you certainly learn from it, and I think that's what we will see from this Villanova team. How about the bigs, David? You mentioned the rebounding. Kevin Willard talked about it. He said the quiet part out loud after the game. We need to not get killed on the glass this year. We're going to do enough other things to counteract maybe being at a disadvantage rebounding-wise, but what we can't do is survive getting dominated on the glass. There were stretches where Virginia started to dominate. Their offensive rebound percentage was insane. It was at times up near 50%. I think they ended the game just under 40% of the shots they missed getting offensive rebounds. That isn't a number that Kevin Willard can live with. But there were some signs of some, certainly Duke Brennan and Braden Pierce were out there competing on the glass. Matt Hodge as well.
Yeah, I mean, you got to find a way to rebound. The 11 offensive rebounds leading to 12 second chance points for Virginia. It's going to be tough to overcome, but Duke Brennan had 5, Pierce no rebounds. You can't come in the game and get no rebounds. You got to pull some down, particularly the defensive ones. I understand everybody wants an offensive rebound, but you have to clean up Virginia's misses or whoever you're playing and get the ball going the other way. So those guys are going to have to lock in and box out, because I don't think they're going to out jump very many people. So you got to make sure that they're on your back, and the only way they can get an offensive rebound is to go over your back.
And I was surprised with Pierce ending up with no rebounds. I did tip a ball. I think I actually tipped a couple balls, kept it alive, and helped beat the rebounds. I thought he boxed out, which was good. He's certainly a physical guy. You wonder, though, if all the foul trouble that we talked about in that first exhibition game against VCU, if that was really a message from the coaching staff of making sure you're available, the first ability is availability, right? And he
Yeah.
wasn't going to play many minutes at the foul rate. He was racking them up in that game against VCU. So maybe he's trying to avoid picking up any silly ones. But yeah, with his level of athleticism right now, he's a big body and he's going to have to mix it up defensively and rebound the basketball and then screen like crazy. I thought he did set some good
Yeah.
screens. I thought he was an outlet offensively and he had a block. And I think he ordered another shot near the rim. There are things that he can do. You don't want him out there 20, 25 minutes a night at this stage of his career, but he can be a 10 to 15 minute a night guy. But you're right. He's got to be posting over those 10 to 15 minutes, at least 2 or 3 rebounds.
Yeah. And I think there is a fine line between wanting to save your fouls so you can actually be in the game and going to rebound. I think Kevin Willard would accept a rebound where you are just boxing out hard and you and a guy are battling for the ball. I think Kevin Willard would take that. There's a difference between that and a foul on a guy driving where you're not really doing anything defensively to make his shot harder. So that's where Pierce is going to have to get his game and figure out what he can and cannot do, because I would almost guarantee that Kevin Willard's telling him the same thing. If you're going hard for a rebound and you pick up a foul, I can live with that.
Certainly, you'd have to think that'll be the message coming out of this game. Tafari Gapari making his Villanova debut. He's a guy that they are relying on for minutes. But remember, coming back from injury, they didn't clear him until very late. You wonder where he is physically right now in terms of trying to get back near 100%. He got dinged, did not come back for many minutes in the second half, if any at all, in fact. But that being said, when he was out there, he's got to be a little bit more active. Now, he was trying to be active offensively. I thought at times maybe forced a little bit too much, but I feel like they need a little bit more from him glass-wise and on the defensive end.
I mean, one rebound is not cutting it from the forward position. But I agree. I think that he was pressing offensively. A lot of times guys will do that if they're coming back from injury because they think, hey, there are other guys injured right now. I have to pick up my minutes right now. I think that if he wants to get in Kevin Willard's good graces, it's going to be on the defensive end where he can show the tenacity to get after guys, get under them, play solid defense. And I think he'll earn minutes that way as opposed to forcing things on the offensive end. Guy who I think played really well defensively was Christian Jeffrey. I thought every time I saw him out there, he was going full speed defensively. I think he made mistakes, but the old adage is if you're going to make a mistake, make it full speed. And he did that. And I appreciate what he did defensively. I mean, 4 steals. Good. It's a good game from him.
He's physical too. I mean, he's not a huge guy, but he's pretty strong especially for somebody his age. And 18 minutes, as you said, 4 steals, 10 points. The efficiency when he was out there, he's gonna have a role. And I thought it was interesting to see him out there for some minutes, him and Caden Lewis at the same time. And what that does for Caden Lewis, take a little pressure off his shoulders. You need his offensive capabilities, but now he doesn't have to be the focal point of the offense in terms of manufacturing and distributing. He can just kind of be looking for his. I think that could be something, obviously you're going to be looking for that when Evanescu comes back from the injury, but you would certainly love to be able to do it with a couple different guys, and Jeffrey might be a possibility here down the line.
And Jeffrey's definitely a possibility. I thought Tyler Perkins did a good job when he was out there with Lewis. There were a couple of times he brought the ball up the floor, got the offense into something so that Acaden could play off the ball, get more screens off the ball. So I was optimistic that Perkins will be able to come in and be that distributor as well, that we're not going to be focused solely on Caden Lewis getting the offense going, that there are guys who can come in and spell in for minutes, whether that's him sitting on the bench or him going over to the 2 spot and running the 2 to get some looks for his own shot.
All right, one more thing for us. Then we're going to bring in Marcus Washington, who's a DMV basketball expert, has been at both the Villanova's exhibition games, was down there at John Paul Jones Arena, get a firsthand thought process of and perspective of what was kind of going on out there between Villanova and Virginia. And then after that, stick around because we're going to talk about the women's basketball team, their scrimmage against Towson. Boy, did they look good. Denise Dillon's team. Again, never as good as it looks or as bad as it seems. You don't want to overact. That's kind of the theme of this show. No overreacting. It's just an exhibition. But this is, you got to temper your expectations after what you saw in the opener for the women's team. We'll get to that in a minute. But you mentioned him earlier, Malachi Palmer. Here's a guy that he shoots 5 of 17 from the field, 2 of 7 from 3, and he's got national reporters raving about his play. You already talked about it. We're so impressed by what he brought to the table. Can you kind of put into words in your mind why so many people were so high on Palmer coming out of that game?
I think his athleticism. He looked good. He looked good going to the basket, looked comfortable around the basket. I mean, the shooting numbers are not great, I'll give you that. But I think, like with Jeffrey, he played hard. And I think when you play hard, you're going to get guys to notice you. And when you play hard, you're going to make one or two of those plays a game where you go, wow, that was a good play. If he does that a couple more times, it's going to be really good plays.
And the other thing is, too, you add in too that he brings to the table. This is a guy, when remember, still no Zion Stanford yet. We're thinking December for his return. When you have the option of Stanford and Palmer to match with those backcourt players, or mixing and matching to go small, athletic, long, and strong. I mean, that's what I think Kevin Willard's been alluding to in terms of all the different combinations that he can throw teams and the different perspectives that they're going to have to get ready for and kind of
Yeah.
game plan against. That's a big deal. You've been in those game planning meetings before when you're doing walkthrough, when you're doing the scout, when you're trying to put everything together. There's only so many things you want to put in your players' minds, so you try to avoid overload. Villanova's going to try to test that, I think, this year when they get all their pieces back.
Oh, for sure. There's so many pieces that can do so many different things that I think a lot of what they do offensively and defensively. I mean, this is true for every team, but I think even more so on this team, it's variation between what they're going to run offensively depending on the guys on the floor. And I think that it's exciting to say if a Stanford comes back in December, you're looking more to go high low with him. If Palmer plays the way that he did, you're looking more to go 4 out and allow him to get downhill with some screens up top, allow him to use some of that athleticism to get to the rim. But one last thing, the importance of exhibition games. We got to see, Nova got to be in a situation where you're down, it was either 5 or 7 with like 45 seconds left in the second half. They make a basket, they're into the press, they get a steal, they make another basket. Those situations are just going to help you down the season when it comes up again. You're down 3 with 20 seconds left. What are we doing? Well, we saw this before.
Oh, it's invaluable, and what a great segue you provide. We're going to be joined here in a moment by Marcus Washington of MTC Media. This guy is like a walking, talking basketball encyclopedia. He knows DMV basketball like the back of his hand. He'll tell you stories about Maryland, about Georgetown, about Virginia, about DeMatha, whatever you want. Just serve up a topic, and he'll go for 15 minutes. Well, he's been at both of Villanova's exhibition games in person. He made the trip. I got so excited about Marcus Washington, I knocked my camera right out of the computer. But he is a walking, talking encyclopedia of DMV basketball. He's been at both Villanova exhibitions so far. He was down at John Paul Jones Arena. He's going to give you his perspective right now. Can't wait to hear from him what he had to say. And we welcome in Marcus Washington, the head of MTC Media, who has been at Villanova's exhibition game so far this year. He made the trip down to Charlottesville. He knows DMV basketball as well as anyone. Marcus, best place probably for us to start, though, from that exhibition against UVA. It was up and down for Villanova, as exhibitions are wont to be, but the execution down the stretch from the Cats to be able to give themselves a chance in a game, I know that the result doesn't matter, but they had an opportunity to get that game tied at the end. What did that tell you about this team in the first year under Kevin Willard?
Well, it tells me that Kevin and his staff is really reaching his team on details. We're still in October. A lot of times coaches, either at the beginning of practice or at the end of practice, that's when they really work on their situationals. And you want to really see, are the players really paying attention to the smallest details? Villanova, with 131 left, was down by 10 points of that game. And then in the last 131, you forced 3 turnovers. You're scoring and getting stops. The other thing that I love was on an inbounds, they get one of UVA's players trapped in the corner. Instead of doing what players tend to do, which is reach or bump or have a foul that ruins this perfect trap, they go strong base, straight up and down. UVA throws the ball out of bounds. You get a blob off of a turnover when you're trying to come back. That tells me Kevin and his staff is not only reaching this team, these guys are understanding that the details, even in October, that the details matter. And you know how it is, all the transferring. We don't have rosters that go year to year where you can build upon it. For the staff, whether it's Kevin, whether it's Coach Cox, Coach Manning, all those guys, that's telling me that early on, they've taken these group of guys and they're making them one cohesive unit.
Very impressive considering the number of new parts that they're dealing with as you're trying to implement a system to have that attention to detail. And that's kind of one of the things that you're looking for this program this year. You want to have success, obviously, that's first and foremost, but you're also trying to lay those foundations of everything you're trying to build beyond it. And that's one of the things Kevin Willard's talked about at great length. You've done some coaching in your background. How tough is that to try to make all of this click right away?
Well, when you're having 10 and 11, 12 new players, it seems like almost every year. And then you're a new staff in a new place. And I know Kevin was at Seton Hall, so I know he's familiar with the Big East and so the landscape. But it is more difficult today because you're grabbing kids out the portal. You're hoping that you get it right because you don't know what their agenda is on these switches. And sometimes it doesn't reveal itself until it gets in the gym. What I think helps him and his staff out is their philosophy, and I learned this about Kevin down at Maryland more than at Seton Hall, which is they are going to put you in a position of your strength, whatever that strength may be. And they work hard at doing that. I think what happens is it allows players to play comfortably with confidence. And when they're getting in their positions in the strength, it loses that it's my turn basketball. And it goes into, oh, I know I'll have my opportunities. That has always been important. But when we talk about 2025 in the transfer era, the transfer portal era, man, that's a superpower. Because a lot of older coaches aren't doing that. And that's where the frustration is coming. But Kevin and his staff have really pivoted. I think they've done a great job. I saw it up close at Maryland. They've done a great job pivoting to this era without losing their standards. That's where I think, where if I was a Villanova fan, I would about what this program can be in 2 or 3 years. You don't want to say this year, but in 2 or 3 years that he's established that standard and coming in, and I would be excited about that.
So let's stick with the positives while we're on that track. Another really solid game for a true freshman in Caden Lewis. This might be the longest we go in a Villanova interview all year long without mentioning Caden Lewis's name. But you followed him throughout his high school career. You know of his productivity and his capabilities quite well. Did you think it would click as quickly as it did? And look, there's a long way to go. It's 2 exhibition games. There's going to be ebbs and flows, ups and downs, but he looks much more polished than at least I thought he would at this stage.
I think what he's put first and foremost is how high IQ he is. let's be all honest. When he was in high school, he was loud to dribble. He was very ball dominant. And I understand for what Sidwell friends asked him to do, especially once Caleb Williams, who is at Georgetown, had finally left, they were teammates, was he was taking control of everything. What I have noticed here, even in the short 6 days between the exhibition with VCU and Virginia, is the quick adjustments. Yes, would you like to see him improve on getting it out a little bit earlier? But in those 6 days, it got out much earlier on Saturday night, which is also telling you not only is he smart, he's very, very coachable. The things I think he needs to adjust to, he knows people are going to sit on his left hand. And I thought we saw a little bit of what he did in high school when Virginia made an adjustment. His first couple times in screen and roll, he got to the front of the rim. Virginia started hedging. They didn't hedge hard, but they hedged and square with their big. And what tells me that Caden Lewis is paying attention was after that, he started using his chaser pace game to get inside the lane. And then this is where it just really impressed me. Then he became a plus decision maker. It wasn't just shooting the ball. It wasn't just finishing. You could see him looking opposite box. You could see him before that last dribble, spotting where he wants the ball to go to. Those are things, and like you said, it's 2 exhibitions. When guys start the game plan, because I did ask Coach Odom, did he vary his coverages on the screen and roll? He said, no, we stayed with our base coverage, and he knew where I was getting at. But my thing with Acaden, just from what I've known about him and his high IQ and his ability to be coached, once you're starting to put in full scouts, once you're starting to do those things, I know that young man will pick up those tendencies. And he's already showing the ability to adjust in game. That is a positive. And I think Acaden has a lot to go. Now, there's things he has to work on. Not really that great of a 3-point shooter. We see that in both exhibition games, kind of struggled on the free throw line, which I was kind of surprised with. But the good things that he was doing, setting up his teammates, knowing when to get his shots, knowing when to take it, being a better decision maker as a freshman in this era of AAU and all this sort of stuff. Again, he's on the right trail for Villanova, especially in this conference.
Another guy whose game you know very well, who was impressive. The stats might not jump out at you. He had a rough shooting night, but he seemed to do everything else pretty impressively, was Malachi Palmer. I know one guy who took notice, John Rothstein, was all over him on social media, the CBS reporter, but I think with good reason. We saw it in flashes against VCU. He had a bunch of steals that led to transition game. There's a lot that he can do for this team.
Yeah, when certainly Palmer came with him from Maryland. He was looking to have a bigger role, and I think he'll have that opportunity up here at Villanova. He'll have a bigger role. I know with the shooting, the 5 for 17. Look, Villanova only played with 8 guys. I know they're banged up. Some guys were asked to do things that on a normal night they're not going to be asked to do. And I thought he has shown. I thought he had shown a lot of aggressiveness, things that he was probably a year away when he was at Maryland. And then, teaming him up with Tyler Perkins, another guy there that's a strong defender that had transferred in under Neptune, having similar problems, kind of guiding his 3 and not shooting his 3. But both of those guys will focus on other things. They want to play winning basketball. They understand that if their shot is not hitting, that there are avenues to continue to play minutes under Kevin Willard where they can do these other things. And both of them have incredible buy-in on that.
Bryce Lindsey might be Villanova's best shooter. He didn't play.
Yeah.
It was a late scratch. That's a big deal. But it has been 2 games now. Exhibitions, you're working on things. It's very early. This team's going to get better as the year progresses. But one thing we were worried about coming into these exhibitions was the perimeter shooting. That concern has kind of grown here over the first 2 games. What are you seeing? Do you think they have a chance to develop into at least a team that can keep defenses honest from the perimeter?
From what I've seen in the first couple of games, it's going to be a struggle. Those guys that they have is not an every night knockdown shooting game. This is where Kevin has to get creative in finding their spots. And then whatever philosophy he wants to have on offense, tailoring it around there. We're seeing it at Georgetown right now. Same thing. Came in all concerned all summer, shooting. Ed and his staff has done a great job at identifying where the strengths are for those players on the perimeter, and then kind of manipulating the offense around that. Kevin is going to have to be the same thing. Where are the strengths for those players on the perimeter? Are they slot shooters? Are they wing shooters? Are they corner shooters? Are they catch and shoot? Is it off the dribble? If it's all staggers, I could go on and on and on. And there's room in his offense to put some of those actions in. It's not when I played in the 80s. The offense was the offense, right? All these offenses today have a lot of flexibility in it, where you can come out of horns, or you want to come out of 1-4 high, and there's actions to get guys in comfortable spots. As Kevin and them finally get a healthy roster, I think they will identify that, and then the numbers will kind of show what they show. You won't have to win games on the numbers. You'll hit just enough. And that's why I say I think Georgetown's the same way. Do you get 7 to 10 made threes in 25 attempts or less? Those type of things. Yeah, you're not going to have JJ Redick out there, and that's fine. You don't need that. Once Kevin and them can get healthy, and I want to stress, once they can get healthy, I think they'll identify that, and they'll start working on how to mitigate the fact that they're not a great shooting team.
The other thing I know you were a little bit worried about was how easily, especially the first half, Virginia was able to work their way into the painted area, the physicality from that Virginia team. How does Villanova get better at dealing with that type of play? Because they're going to see it a bunch of times in non-conference with 2 Big Ten opponents, and obviously life in the Big East is full of physicality.
I would say you convince your guards. You convince your guards to be as physical up to the line of where they blow the whistle. Because what's happening is, and it happened in the UVA game, once the ball gets inside, I would say the top of the key, referees start looking maybe a little bit more at the extra positioning. And what was happening to Villanova was, once Virginia would beat them on the first step, it was always that first move. Guys would kind of fall back because you don't want to commit a foul 19, 20 feet from the basket. Well, next thing you know, Virginia's getting 2 feet in the paint like constantly in the first half. I mean, they lived there. And then once that happened, now their bigs, wings, you can be as physical as you want to be as long as you're not shoving anyone down. That's just how college basketball is. It's why Houston is so successful. They use a similar type of philosophy with that. So how do you stop that when you're not the most physical inside? Your guards have got to sit down those guys and say, you know what? Even if we're a little handsy, we're going to be a little handsy. We're going to keep you out. We're going to guide you to our help, whatever that philosophy is, whether it's baseline, whether it's middle, whether you want to ice screens, whatever it is. But the guards need to play to the philosophy, and they need to play in a physical manner to the philosophy. And that'll help stop that. You know, you are who you are, but as a team defensively, once you get into that, it'll help cut off some of the stuff that we were seeing, especially in the first half the other night.
I could listen to you talk about basketball all day. The man is an encyclopedia. It is impressive. His passion for the sport is certainly something that just radiates off of him. It's so much fun. Tell people about your media company, how they find your work.
Yeah, you can go on X, and it's MTC Media Sports. And that will link you to every place where I am, whether it's my YouTube channel, whether it's my Substack site. And yes, I have an incredible passion for this game, and always communicate with me. If you see me covering the game, I might not be able to stop and talk, but always say hello. I always think that in the time that we're in, you know, on this end, covering games and stuff, we have to humanize ourselves too, and thank the people who are willing to come to our content, especially when we're doing it in a time that's more traditional, but in a time that, you know, that was once thought to be an untraditional manner. Look, I love the game. I love talking to guys. I love hearing what you have to say, as long as it's respectful. Hearing what you have to say. So yes, say hello. Catch up with my work, MTC Media Sports on X. I appreciate it.
Oh, man, it is great stuff Worth checking out. He's always at a game. He's always got an opinion, and he's always going to teach you something. Could not enjoy this anymore. Marcus, hopefully we'll be able to do this again down the road.
Anytime you'd like.
How good was that from Marcus Washington? I mean, you talk about a guy that just oozes passion for the sport and can just break it down to a very fine level and yet not overcomplicate it. He is so much fun to listen to, and he brings up a lot of good points and some things to worry about for the Wildcats, but yet overall he seems pretty high on this team and their opportunity to grow as the year progresses.
Yeah, I didn't like that at all because I'm worried you're going to replace me now with Marcus. But no, he was awesome. He was great, breaking down all of those things. Yeah, I could listen to him all day talking about basketball. I'm sure that he has stories upon stories upon stories that would be amazing. I did not like the JJ Redick reference, but that's fine. I'll let that one pass.
That's all right. You will like this. He was talking about Coach K's shortcomings at the Pan Am games when we were talking to him at the Big East Media Day. So he will break anything down when it comes to basketball. He is just a ton of fun, and you learn something every time you talk to him. All right, speaking of learning something, what did we learn about the women's basketball program as they took the stage for the first time in exhibition play against Towson? That game on Friday night as well. That was at the Finn. It was pretty darn impressive. 79-54, the final score. We put the stats up on the screen for those watching. How about Jasmine Bascoe? You know, we get Denise Dillon a bit of a fun, hard time when she joined us a few weeks ago about, could you imagine early in your career, if you managed to hold on to a kid from her freshman to her sophomore season, and everybody would be telling you how great a job you did coaching and recruiting wise for just avoiding her transferring, how that could possibly be. And she said, yeah, it really does tell you how much things have changed. But it was one of the best coaching moves in the Big East this year, getting Bosco back into the fold. And again, never as good as it seems, never as bad as it looks, but that looked pretty darn good. 19 shots, 32 points, 7 of 10 3. Yeah, she was feeling it. We've seen her feel it at times, maybe never to quite that degree, but it was just a little bit of everything. 3 assists, 3 rebounds. The kid can play, man.
Yeah, I don't know how you come across a better stat line in 27 minutes. What do you complain about on this stat line? The 3 fouls? Maybe that's the only thing you got, but that is impressive work in 27 minutes to 70% from 3. That's unheard of.
Yeah,
I like you said, 3 assists, only 1 turnover, 3 steals. Ugh. What do you do?
but here's the thing about this team. Now, look, they play Towson. Towson's a CAA team, not a bad CAA program, middle of the pack CAA team that, you know, depends who you speak to. Laura Harper might take a step up this year or it might stay middle of the pack. Either way, that's a solid mid-major opponent, and you dominated them, which is a great thing. It's what you're supposed to do. You jumped on them. We're up 11 at the end of the first quarter, 22 at halftime. That's exactly what you're looking for. A little bit of a lull in the third quarter, which at times was a problem last season. So that's something that maybe you can use as a coaching point if you're Denise Dillon. You only scored 11 points coming out of the locker room, but then you doubled down and scored 24 in the fourth quarter. So I guess you were able to refine it. Brooke Bender, who's somebody that Denise Dillon said could find a role this year. I'm not sure if she was trying to play possum or what's going on there, but how about knocking down 4 threes in your first ever college game? It won't count. That'll stink when the stats reset at the end of the exhibition season, but still you'll have that memory and that positivity that you can build off of. She also had 8 rebounds. That probably was the most impressive part as a freshman. And here's the thing, you've been a coach working against this system and trying to figure out how to defend it. It's tough enough when you got 1 or 2 people that can shoot the 3. But right now, it looks like Villanova has 3 people you're going to have to respect the 3-point shot of no matter where they are on the floor, plus 2 legit bigs. And then if you're going to add the Brooke Benders of the world into knocking down shots, this is where it gets tough to beat Denise Dillon, and that's capital Tough. I don't know how you do it.
If you're a Big East team and you see 53% from three, that's not going to happen every night.
No.
But 53% from three, I don't care if I give you 10 wide open threes. That's going to be difficult in the flow of the game to hit 53%. So you got to feel good about your shooting. You got to feel good. 43% from the field. It looks right now really good, and we're not going to overreact. But if you can shoot this anywhere near this well at any point during the season, it's going to be an embarrassment of riches.
Oh, for sure. I think, though, the number that jumps off the page to me is plus 22 on the glass. I mean, they out-rebounded them 48-26. Again, it's a mid-major team. But Towson's long. I mean, that's their thing. Laura Harper was a long guard at Maryland. She loves length, physicality, athleticism. They're not an easy team to box out. Villanova just wore them out on the glass, and that was their bugaboo last year. Pretty much, if Danae Carter didn't get a rebound, they weren't getting a rebound last year.
Yeah.
Guards got a little bit better second half of the season. It's why they started to win some games down the stretch. Now you add Kylie Watson, the transfer from Notre Dame, to the fold. Kelsey Jones is a good rebounding guard. Jasmine Bascoe is a year older, a year stronger. You still got Carter, who's a year removed from that knee injury, so she's going to be moving probably as well as she has at any point in her career. If this team, if they're just a good rebounding team, they don't have to be, again, you're not going to be plus 22 every night either. But if you're a team that is consistently winning the rebound margin and you can spread the floor and make threes at the clip that Villanova can, and then you got the physicality defensively of Carter and Watson. Look, who in the Big East? UConn is its own animal. But outside of that, who in the Big East is going to beat that Villanova team?
Yeah. And of those 48, 22 offensive rebounds, leading to 16 second chance points. And I know every coach will tell you the best time to shoot a three is off of an offensive rebound when the defense is crashing down. So if you can pick up those O boards and you got your shooters out there with nobody around them, it's going to be a good day. But look, you had 20 points off of turnovers. 25 from the bench is going to be huge. To get that kind of production coming off the bench will be big. So, I think if you're outside of UConn, if you're watching, you're a little concerned about what Villanova is going to bring this year.
And also keep this in mind. Kennedy Henry is their best true freshman. And in her debut, a little bit of an off night. That is to be expected. Not everybody has the first exhibition game that Brooke Bannon did against Towson or Caden Lewis did against VCU. Most freshmen, it's that kind of awkward transition phase where you're adjusting to college game tempo. And that's kind of what happened to Henry. 1 of 8 from the field, 0 of 5 from 3. But the coaching staff is so high on this kid. They think that she has a chance to develop into the type of freshman impact player that Bascoe was last year. And Bascoe was, she was basically an all-conference player by the end of the year. And we see what she's done to start year number 2. If you can get even anywhere near that from Henry, when you add in Watson and Carter at full strength, I just think this team is so much deeper than what we have seen in years past. You haven't had this type of depth for Villanova since it was Maddie Sechrist and Lucy Jones combining together. I mean, that's probably the last time they had anything anywhere near this, and that you only had for 1 year in the crossover.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be big. I mean, Henry, like you said, had an off night. Those are going to happen for everybody.
Lucy Olson, by the way, I beg your pardon. I'm thinking of Chelsea Jones. My fault, Lucy Olson.
But off nights are going to happen for everybody. So when all 3 of them are clicking, just imagine what happens there. But I think that it is looking very good for the depth. I love 25 points off the bench. I will tell you, I love it. I love being able to say, these are my best 5. These are the people I'm going with. And I can still bring people on. I can bring them on the court, and we're not going to drop off offensively or defensively. I think that's what Denise Dillon has right now.
and it allows you to sustain an off shooting night from one of your three main players. If you have
Mhm.
other options that you can turn to, people don't shy away from shooting the ball, people that can shoot it in rhythm, or people that can fill roles to go get it and give you extra opportunities to shoot the ball, that's huge too. And that is another part of what it looks like Villanova might have on the table this year. All right. So we promised you coming into the show that we would be kind of giving our thoughts on what is real in terms of concern and in terms of what to be excited about, and what is something that you don't necessarily have to worry about, or something that maybe you should pump the brakes in terms of how excited you are. So let's kind of recap. Let's start on the men's side. To you, David, what is your biggest concern for this team right now after their two exhibitions?
It has to be 3-point shooting. It has to be. I mean, I don't think you can go anywhere else because that's going to have to be such a big part of what they do to run Kevin Willard's offense well. You have to be able to keep the defense honest in order to clear up some space for the guards to get into the lane. You're going to have to. So I think that is number one on my list of concerns is that 3-point shooting.
How about in terms of the thing that you think is most real that you are encouraged by with the men's team?
Caden Lewis. He's looked great in both exhibitions. Obviously, I didn't see the first one, but you were there. He looked great against
You look great.
Virginia.
You look great.
Yeah, he
I
looked
can vouch
great
for that.
against Virginia. So I think that he is the real deal. Obviously, as you go through the season, I expect he has some off nights. But I expect to see more nights than not he'll be on.
All right. And then something that maybe people are worried about, or the stats suggest haven't been great so far, that you don't think is actually a long term concern. It's just a couple exhibition games. Don't worry about it yet.
I would say probably the rebounding. I think it's a little concerning, but I think once you get a little more healthy, you get some guys back, especially Zion Stanford, if he's able to get back in December, that's going to help the rebounding number. I think that number right there, you get Pierce playing better on the boards. I think that number is going to change. I don't foresee them being a rebounding behemoth. I just don't see every night getting out rebounded by double figures.
To me, I'm with you. 3-point shooting, just overall flow of the
Yeah.
offense with all the pieces that are out, how you're going to get that incorporated and ready in time for what's a big test in the opener against BYU. What I'm most encouraged by is Caden Lewis and Bryce Lindsey. I know Bryce Lindsey didn't play against Virginia, but I was impressed by what he did. I think those can be a really nice combination. And Chris Jeffrey as well, by the way. I know I'm cheating. I'm just saying a lot of things. But Chris Jeffrey, I wasn't expecting that. I'm not going to lie to you and pretend like I thought Chris Jeffrey was a guy that was going to be able to hit the ground running and immediately contribute. I thought it was a necessity thing. It feels like he has earned his opportunity to play. To me, that's a big deal. We'll talk more about that in our preseason prediction show coming up on Thursday. And then in terms of something I'm not all that worried about, I don't know about the rebounding. Kevin Willard's awful worried about the rebounding, so I'm concerned about that as well. But I hear what you're saying. They're going to get healthier. They're going to get bigger. They're going to be back. I'm not concerned about the 3-point defense. 3 of the 4 halves, it's been good. I think that they have, with Kevin Willard's system, they'll switch things up. I think that right now they're still staying relatively simple. That's what Willard's known for, his ability to confuse opposing offenses. I think you'll see much more complicated things once you get into the regular season, so I'm not worried about that. Let's switch to the women's side. Is there anything to be worried about after that exhibition game? Can you make something up? You used to be in a coach's room. What would you guys do after that type of performance?
You got to harp on, I guess, fouls. I get putting them on the free throw line 20 times. That would be the one thing that you can say, hey, we got to do a better job defensively. We can't foul that much. But other than that, it was a pretty clean stat sheet.
It was as close to flawless as you could get. I'll go with you got to come out concentrating to start the third quarter, no matter the situation, because they're not all going to be lopsided leads, and you did struggle with that maybe a little bit a year ago. But that all right, so that is as close to a real concern. I can try to get the air quotes in there. Real concern as you can find for the Villanova women's basketball team after the exhibition. I know Denise Dillon has several that she would run through right now if she was here. She probably isn't going to like this conversation too much. That's why we're having it at the end of the show. But let's talk about in terms of what you're most encouraged by with the women's basketball team right now.
I mean, the easy answer is to go with the Jasmine Bascoe, but I think Brooke Bender being able to get that production off the bench, if she's able to continue growing as a player and bring that every night, I think that Bascoe, she is what she is. She's going to be great. She's been great. So I think having that second and third option, assuming that Kennedy Henry is going to live up to everything that the coaches are seeing in practice, and obviously we're not there, but I trust their eyes. So I'd say most encouraged by this stat line from Brooke Bender.
I think that's a good one. If she can provide some depth, that's an important thing. Bosco's a great point because, again, she's good, very good, very, very good. I didn't think that she was going to be somebody that could potentially be an everyday 20, 25 point per game player. I thought she would be in that 16 to 18 range. If she can get you into the 20 to 25, that takes you to another level. But to me, it's the rebounding. You dominate the glass like that against a long Towson team. I know it's a mid-major, but wow. I mean, you got those two bigs now. When Denise Dillon has been at her best at Drexel, early in her Villanova tenure, when she's got big people that can move, that's when this system is at its most effective. They've got big people that can move. Look out. And that, I think, is something that they will be able to build on all year long. All right, that is it for this edition. Coming up, here's what you've got to start to think about, David. Bold proclamations about the upcoming season for both the men and the women. We're going to each make some bold statements and try to back them up. We're also going to give you our player that will be most improved from start of the year to end, our outstanding player in terms of the MVP of the team, and, of course, our final record, our final conference record. Will there be a trip to March? And how long will the March stay be? Are you ready to get your Nostradamus on Thursday?
Yeah, the little mouse is running around up there already.
That's a scary place. I feel real bad for that mouse. I got to get him some cheese because that's eating some kind of funky stuff. If he's up in your face. We will also hear from Kylie Watson. We caught up with her at Big East Media Day, so we will certainly share what her impressions of the Villanova program that she's joined are and what she thinks that she can do for this Wildcat program. So that's coming up Thursday. We'll preview both the men's and women's team. We're 2 times a week here for the season is less than a week away. Hallelujah. We're ready to go on Holy Nova. We'll talk to you on Thursday.